Good evening, everyone, and good morning and good afternoon. We are so excited for everyone to be with us today. I am Elizabeth Askren. I am the founder and artistic director of TOA, the Transylvanian Opera Academy, located here in Cluj-Napoca, Romania. But our guests are from all over the world, and that's why we launched this new series called Polyphonies, because we're bringing many different voices together around topics that matter to us. So to launch our first series, I'd like to welcome our guests. We have Kristian Roberts, who's Director of Education at the Dallas Opera. We have Julia Lagahuzère, who is co-founder and General Director of Opera for Peace. And we have Anna de Archuleta, who is the founder of A.D.A. Artist Management. We also will be having Brenna Corner, who's a stage director working across North America and who is currently in a production meeting. So she will be telling us she's making art in the COVID era. Yes, it is possible. So she'll be coming a little later on to share her experiences with us as well. So welcome, everybody. We're so delighted that you could be here with us today. We would like to introduce our guests a little bit, and I think we should start with Anna de Archuleta. Welcome, you're coming to us from New Jersey, and I would love to talk about your background a little bit, if I may, because you know this art form of opera as very few people do, because you have a background as an instrumentalist, a dancer, stage manager, assistant director, opera chorist, and soloist before you made the jump, I'd say, into artistic administration. Can you tell us why you love opera so much? Oh, and you are on mute, so just make sure we.
Okay.
There we are. Okay.
All right. So I fell in love with opera back in my native Puerto Rico. I am from Puerto Rico. I moved to the States when I was 25 years old to do my master's in Cincinnati. But I fell in love from the best seat of the house. I was asked to join the chorus of La Traviata in Puerto Rico. Diana Soviero was singing Violetta. And it was my first opera. I've never seen one. And I was asked because I was a performer. I was a dancer at the musical theater. And the chorus master heard me and said, do you want to come to join the chorus? And I said, of course. I cannot tell you what the impression it made. It made me the biggest nerd in opera possible. My second opera was with Mirella Freni singing me. And I was in the chorus, yet again, the best seat in the house. So how can you not fall in love when you have these voices and this pathos coming at you, such a close distance? So I became the biggest nerd of opera. I was involved in every single one in my hometown. I bought every single CD of opera you could possibly get. And I became a nerd. I studied every single voice type. I was fascinated by early music as well as verismo. I'm mostly Italian because I come from Latin country, and that's what most Latin countries start with, is the Italian opera. But then I was actually making my degree in communications and broadcasting at the same time. So all these different areas in my life, between singing, dancing, being in the music industry since I was 11 years old, it all culminated when I was 30 years old and I decided to become a manager, because it was all my loves all together in one place. And I was getting to work for artists, which for me was just the biggest privilege.
That is so interesting, because what we do feel from you as an artist manager is your love and is your care for the people whom you work with and collaborate with. And that's really, I think, rather rare. So I think that's amazing. Could you talk a little bit, because I know that at the beginning of this COVID crisis, you made a series of meetings and like regular check-ins with your artists. Why did you want to do that? And what was the outcome that you saw from that? Because I know that that was very healing and very reassuring for me, but what was it like from your standpoint?
Um, well, we all felt a little disconnected. We all sort of were, it's like a bomb went off and everybody went in different directions, everybody in their corners. And I think that there was an immediate need for connection and for information. So the moment it was actually in Facebook, there was a memory from last year around this time where that first meeting for all of my roster came up. And I needed to see my people. I just needed to see them and hear from them. And those were 4 meetings. I think everybody cried once, at least in one of those meetings. I think that it was, everybody had this thing in their stomach. They just didn't know what was going to happen. How long was it going to last? What happened to the last gig? What happened with their financial situation, foreseeable future. But we sort of leaned on each other and we started sharing resources. We started talking about how one was feeling, how the family was doing. And you remember, I mean, it was super touching. We started spraying them out a little later because we were so overwhelmed with Zoom meetings at some point that we just kept touching base. We have a group on Facebook only of our roster, which we keep sharing information and connecting with each other. But that was crucial. That connection that we had right away was super important.
Yeah, that's really great. And it gave people hope and information in a time where we did not have much of either. So yeah, that was amazing. I also wonder now, a year later, how are you seeing the situation that we're living now? Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel, or do you think we still have to hang on?
Um, we have to hang on because it's coming. And the thing is, like, we've waited already a year. We don't want to take steps back just as we're getting ready to open up.
Mhm.
So I think that it's important for everybody to stay disciplined, to get their vaccines, and to keep in touch with each other for the information. I know for a fact that there's a lot of questions, and a lot of artists have been affected emotionally and psychologically by being away from the stage. And a lot of them are scared. They don't know what to expect. Some of them haven't even left their apartment all year because they've been doing their shopping and everything inside, and it's created a little sense of paranoia. And they're scared. So they need reassurance. They need to start slowly getting out there, slowly getting involved in maybe local productions or doing things like that, just to get their wheels turning again. And they need to start singing, especially
Yeah.
the singers. They need to start singing and using their voices, because that solar plexus is going to liberate them, and they're going to cry. They're going to cry once you start singing again. There's just no question about it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It really is a period of silence, and we're starting to reawaken. I mean, I know what we were experiencing here is that a lot of people didn't even have access to venues where they could sing because they live in an apartment, and you can't do that unless you have like incredible neighbors, which, you do the best with what you have. But now you have to find the space where you can actually let go and just, yeah, be free to sing. So I think that's going to be very cathartic for a lot of people, for sure. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Anna, for that initial word of introduction. Now, Kristian, I think that was a great segue to you, because Anna was talking about getting involved and going back to the roots of the community and community productions. You are director of education at the Dallas Opera, and I cannot imagine a better advocate and ambassador, because first of all, like, if there's one like catchphrase for you, I would say community engagement, because you are Texas born and raised, if I'm not mistaken. You went to Baylor and SMU. By the way, I love their logo, World Changers, shaped here. You are living proof of that, so that is awesome. And now you're at TDO. I want to ask you that question. How important is it to know your community in the role of director of education?
It's extremely important. It's not only important to know your community externally, but also your community inside of your company. It is extremely important because even now at the Dallas Opera, we are working very hard. Shout out to my friend Quodicia Johnson, our education and company culture manager. We're working very hard to make sure that the culture of our company and the community that we form in our company, even in the midst of this pandemic, reflects what we're trying to do out in the community. And I know that a lot of opera companies are doing the same thing right now. I mean, it's part of what we do, but in a time of a pandemic, and then of course, I don't know how many people out there know, but Texas had a very bad snowstorm that knocked out our power grid and caused a slew of issues. It is very important to be in touch with the people who make up your organization so they can serve the people that are in the community and truly listen to community need and understand what it means to listen, what it means to be a good guest when you go work with the community. And that's schools, that's retirement homes, that's shopping centers, whatever it is, wherever you're going, it's extremely important to make sure you're listening to the need out there and somehow trying to meet that need in the best way you possibly can, in the most fiscally responsible way you can, and in the most capacity-based way that you can. Because of course we know with this, with the pandemic, there were, like Anna alluded to, there was a lot of cancellations. There were a lot of things that had to come off the stage. I remember distinctly having to pull my touring opera cast off the stage the day we had to shut down. I had to pull them off the road. And so it's very important to be in touch with your community and the needs. And that means reaching out to your fellow organizations in your community, your the corporations, what are they doing? The decision makers in school districts, the teachers themselves, what they need. The situation in the retirement homes was just so dire, and the isolation that we knew they were dealing with. And I know myself, I dealt with isolation personally, so I could not imagine. And I have the ability to get up and move and go take a walk outside and all these things. So all of those things came to the forefront, not only for opera companies, but it came across for every nonprofit organization that I can think of, arts and non-arts. They were trying to figure out, how do we continue to engage in a meaningful way, getting people what they need during this time. So that was the biggest thing to me. I think it's just important to work on both aspects of that, particularly in a time such as this. In the US, we are dealing with racial injustice. We are dealing with shootings, and there are things we have to talk about, because if it is happening in society, don't think it can't happen in your opera house or in your opera offices or amongst your artists. It can happen anywhere. We're just a microcosm of what happens in our community, in our society. So we have to be willing to have those conversations. We have to be willing to seek truth in those conversations, because that will better help us serve the communities in which we are engaging. And that's local, that's regional, that's national, and that's international. This is a multi-layered approach to education and community engagement.
Yeah, I think it's so important, everything that you just said, and that we have to maintain the idea of service and commitment to serving the community. And I wonder, during this time, have you felt that the community has been open to service, or have they wanted to protect themselves, and maybe they weren't in a position where they could receive what your programs were wanting to offer them?
In some cases, yes, because particularly when you're dealing with schools, there are layers with school districts. They were still trying to figure out how to bus kids to school safely. So, you're not thinking about a touring opera or anything like that. You're thinking about how we're going to get these kids to school safely. How we some kids are learning from home, so we have kids that are learning virtually. We had teachers that were teaching to the screen and teaching to a live socially distanced classroom at the same time. So there were a lot of things going on. And so what we ultimately did was we went to school district administrators, we went directly to teachers, we went directly to our education committee, and we said, what do you need? We went to our community partners and we said, we had meetings after meeting, what do you need? And the resounding, at the beginning of all of this, the resounding word was, whatever you have in your curriculum, videos, whatever you have, teaching tools that we can use in this new virtual world we find ourselves in, put it somewhere where we can access it. So we built an education portal and they can access all of that. We also started shooting digital operas, one singer at a time in front of a camera, and putting those together. I got together with my team and I just pulled my team together and I said, what can we do? What do you want to do? And we went through a process that we walked through and we talked, what do we have already? What can we do from our homes? I mean, all of these different things went into play as we were listening to the community and asking them what they needed. We're still having those types of meetings right now with our fellow organizations. We're asking them what is going on. We also talk to our counterparts at other arts companies and museums and said, what are you all doing to meet needs? I think even and I have to give a shout out to David Lamelli, because he immediately went and said artists need to be working, you know, and so that was another facet that we explored. So I think what it does, when the community can't receive what you already have put into place, the question is, what do you need? Not let's find a way so that you can use what we have. It's what do you need? And then we go back to the table and we say, okay, what do we have in our programs that we can modify to meet that need? What do we need to build from scratch? What do we need to completely toss away or put to the side until the time we can actually use it again? And that's essentially what we did.
That's very interesting. So you're talking about not only looking at what you have in stock and maybe repurposing it or finding a different way to communicate what you already have, also shelving some projects that were interesting in another era, but given this time, they're just not apropos, so you just put them away. And then the third one, which intrigues me, and I want to ask you about that, which is building something from scratch that you didn't have before, but you found the specific need to have now. Can you give us one example of that?
Well, I can't, because we haven't done a press release on this, but I will say this. What we wanted to do was, Texas has warm weather a lot, despite the snowpocalypse a few weeks back. And so what moved me the most, and I have to give a shout out to our neighbors at the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. They engaged a concert truck and asked the Dallas Opera, hey, do you have a singer that can come and do something? Well, at that time, singers were super spreaders, and we were going to poison everyone and all of these things. And so what we asked them, so that I got one of my singers to dress up in a Santa suit, and we put him on that truck twice. And I remember going to Cloudworm Park, which is an open space, and they were doing a series of tree lighting ceremonies. And I remember watching him in that Santa suit with these two fabulous pianists, and they gave this 45-minute concert. And I remember the people in the park standing still, watching them. Everybody was masked, everybody was socially distanced. It was December in Texas, so, you know, it was cold, but it was not cold. And I remember getting in my car and bawling my eyes out, because all I could think was, we have to figure out a way. People want this. And I'm talking about everybody from the grandparents to the parents to the little tiny children to the dogs that were out there. You know, they literally, when he sang Oh Holy Night, at the very end, he sang Oh Holy Night, and they didn't move. Nobody moved. I looked around and I was like, I got scared for a minute. I thought, is something happening? But what was happening, it was the power of that music and the power of being outside in community, even though we can't touch, we can't do this. And then the kids, they wanted to take pictures with them afterwards. So we rigged a way for them to be 6 feet in front of him, and he's a big, tall guy, and they got to take pictures with them, including the dogs. Like, it was amazing. It was amazing. But to me, that is what a community, that's one way a community feel can be built. So after that, I went back to the table and I was very inspired, and I went to the chief of Dallas Opera, Ian Dara, and I said, we have to do something, you know. And so we had long talks, and we're launching something that I can't talk about right now, but but that's what the needs are. You have to go where the needs are, and you have to do it in the safest way possible, because I'm still very aware that COVID is alive and well. Okay. As an opera singer, you're very aware. Anna can attest to this. We know our lungs and how much we want to protect them. We know. But I will also say that the safety protocol and the rigorous amount of work that I've seen our team put in, we have a COVID safety officer. I mean, all these people that have put in and researching and constantly researching and handling testing and scheduling and all these different things, it can be done. It's going to take a lot of work. It takes more. During a time where you're just kind of down, it still takes gusto to get out and move. to try to do these things. So I'm not in any means dismissing the situation that we're in. I just saw the need in the community, and we saw the need clearly in the community. And again, it was a way for us to answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where we are right now, trying to answer that need, especially as the weather starts to warm up.
That's fantastic. That reminds me also of great stage direction, which is always respond to what you have. Don't just deliver whatever, you take what you get from your partner on stage and you create something that's viable and that's vibrant and that has meaning at that moment. And it sounds like that's exactly what you all are doing. They are just so lucky to have you and all the wonderful people that you just cited at Dallas Opera. So thank you for making a difference in your community every day. That's really great. Julia, we would love to hear from you. It's so interesting because we have someone who now is a background as a flutist.
Yeah.
And at the fantastic Guildhall School, and then also a musicologist. And I love this slightly different, take and approach to classical music. Now I have to ask, how did you make that transition? How did you fall in love with opera in the beginning?
I think this link with storytelling is one of the most important things, because musicology and the history of music shows us how where we come from, how we can communicate, and all these different aspects. So I was always very attentive to the stories, to the artists, of course, who are telling them. And at one point, when you know that you're not going to be a professional musician, you have to start thinking a little bit realistically. And I realized that I wanted to be close to the artists without being one myself. So this is when I moved into artistic administration. I started at San Francisco Opera. Now, my God, almost 20 years ago. So it's a very long time ago. And it was when I was still studying in California, in Berkeley. And I've actually now been in this business for over 20 years in different positions, and always around artistic administration, casting, and essentially helping artists and, giving them what they need to be able to go on stage and do their best for the public.
Yeah, that's so essential. And I wonder, what are the key elements that you can give to your artists to really make them feel, extremely comfortable and just want them to shine?
There's a lot of love and a lot of care, and as we all know on this panel, it's comes from passion, because we're not in the best paid jobs. Let's be honest. We have to make a lot of personal and professional sacrifices. We can't always live where we want to live. We have so it comes from a lot of passion and a lot of caring. I think on a practical level, it's being there for the artist. It's being there 5 minutes before they go on stage and saying, you can do this. And not only you can do this, just enjoy it. Enjoy it and just go out there and just do your best. So I hope it's being a kind person, and just being there for them throughout the whole rehearsal process, and then ultimately on stage during the performances.
That's fantastic. Well, it sounds like you really do give your personal touch, and you are connected with the people you work around, especially with the artists. And that kind of segues into your project, and where we met was for Opera for Peace, because we met at the 2019, I think it was.
November,
the Dallas Heart Institute. And you were there to be present as one of the guest speakers, and also to present. I think that was when it launched. Can you tell us, how did this idea come to fruition?
Okay, so this has been a project. We've now been launched since Dallas, so for the last year and 4 or 5 months. And, this was really a project that I felt was essential to the future of our business. As I said, working 20 years in opera, I've seen, I think we've all seen so many problems which are systemic to society, but also, let's say, also specific in opera. A lot of corruption, I think we can say it. There is a mafia kind of system that I think is becoming a little bit less, let's hope so. And a lot of racism, a lot of problems, mental health problems, artists who don't have access to affordable and accessible education. So there are, you know, there are no equal opportunities. And there were so many things that made me so scared and worried for our future. So this was the creation and the mission, and still is, behind Opera for Peace. Let's come together as a network. I mean, today we have over 120, 130 partners worldwide. We have a wonderful network of artists, 50 ambassadors, advisors, emerging artists, young artists. And, you know, these are the people who want to come together to actually genuinely do something for the future of our field within this set of values. So I've been, it's really it's the most beautiful part of my career that I've done up until this point, and I've done some beautiful things. So I mean, this is, you know, it's a lot to say, but I really feel that in this position, I can truly help not only the artists that I was helping on stage, but also, let's say, the world and how we can move forward together for the future in the best way.
So that's very interesting. I mean, you had such so many years with experience in institutions of a very high international level. But what you're saying is this Opera for Peace project was taken to a new level. It was not just about excellence. Of course, you're promoting excellence, but it's really having a purpose and having a mission in society, which I think is very new. I think there are very few companies which are based on that kind of a societal mission. And that's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we give artists, I mean, now we have social media, so they have a platform in that way, but we give artists a platform to talk about the greater social issues that we all face and that we all see are important for the world in which we live. I mean, you know, what I'm trying to talk about and to push forward is the message that we have to be relevant to the world in which we live. It's not enough just to say Puccini is wonderful, Pavarotti was fantastic, listen to our music and this is what's happening. We have to show people why we are relevant. And if we do this, we will get new funding, the funding that we are lacking, the funding that we are desperately knocking on all the same doors to have. We have to find new ways of funding. And for this, we have to prove that we can offer something to the world, which is not just going into an opera house and hearing a production. So Opera for Peace, we've done a multitude of initiatives over the since the pandemic hit, which is basically all we've known, unfortunately, since we've been launched. A lot of initiatives with showing that artists are relevant. Maybe I can speak a little bit about those if you want to know more.
Please, we would love to hear this. Yes.
Okay, I'll brief them. So we inaugurated a new initiative a couple of months ago called Circular Culture. And this is a project that links the values of the circular economy and the values of performing arts.
Now, I'm sorry, but can you just, for those who don't know, what is circular economy?
Okay, so circular economy is a way of thinking the world, of going from a linear model, which is basically take, make, and waste, which is not sustainable as we see in the world, and turning it into a circle, which is take, make, and then put back into that circle to make it sustainable. So there are systems called an eco-design, whereby a product is designed in a specific way so that when it is finished, it goes back to the manufacturer to be recycled and reused. this is, I mean, it's a very big topic. This is one of the examples. So we want to show that artists are relevant. We want to show that the issues of the environment and of nature, we have something to say about this. So the program is based on 5 main points with key actions. But the main point is to say that nobody does creative communication like artists. I think we all know this. Nobody can do it like us. So to push forward a message like recycling, like the benefit of the world, we can help to do that through our artistic communication. So, you know, there's a lot of circularity in music. When we think technically, there's riff, ostinato, A.D.A, ternary forms. You know, I believe that music can inspire cyclic thought patterns. And so on a technical basis, music can fit into the circular economy values. And then also more on the humanity side, you know, circular economy talk a lot about the technical side of things. And there's also all this societal part of things. So, you know, as artists, we talk about humanity, we talk about connection, we talk about emotions, we talk about all these wonderful things that make us want to live in this world that we live in. So there are many points that we can come together. On a very practical level, we can do events outside, we can celebrate nature, we can have new commissions, we can sing about all these different themes. And I have to say, we've only been launched for a few months, but it's been very successful. We have interest from many different companies that normally wouldn't know about opera and wouldn't care about opera, are now taking an interest. So we're talking about tech companies, green companies, fashion, recycling, all these different sectors that think, hang on, opera and circular economy, how does that work? And when they think about it and when we present it, there is a strong link. So this is one of the ways of making artists more relevant, giving more opportunities. I'll talk very quickly. We inaugurated our first Opera for Peace Academy in the Middle East, North Africa. We will have that, yes. Yes, we will be inaugurating our Opera for Peace Academy in Africa at the end of the year, and Latin America is coming shortly afterwards. So it's a way to bridge together as an umbrella organization, the different institutions, the different cultural institutions in these regions. And the point of this is to celebrate Arabic heritage, Arabic art. We have identified with our friends in Lebanon, we have identified an educational process of how to sing in Arabic, how to sing opera in Arabic. So let's be practical. There are so many arts organizations coming up in the Middle East. Wouldn't it be wonderful if one of, let's say, Anna's artists can sing in Arabic in Kuwait? Wouldn't this give more opportunity for work? So we're working with our partners, with the Guildhall, with Harvard. We have a series with them. We have a lot of different partners who are very interested in this. So we're building up systems, we're discussing, we're opening up the world, which is the point of Opera for Peace.
Well, this is exciting because it's just a bunch of open doors in so many different domains, whether you're connecting the economy and green initiatives with opera, or you're connecting continents through the leitmotif of the opera form that we love. And I think it's safe to say that you are the epitome of a culturepreneuse. So, you know, félicitations. Yeah, it's really such an inspiration.
I have a very nice team. So I'm going to give a shout out now to my team. So we have Jenna Wolf in New York, Kamal Khan, who's not so far away from her, Dmitry Vdovin from Moscow, Paolo Petrocelli, who's in Rome. We have so many wonderful, I have my colleague Clyde in Paris. So we have 10, 15 strong team that believe in what we're doing. And, you know, without them, this wouldn't be possible. And without the passion of all the artists who are behind us, this wouldn't be possible. So it's a beautiful joint venture, if we carry on the business terminology.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that is great. So congratulations once again for these very exciting innovations in our field. And speaking of innovations in our field, Brenna Corner has been innovating in a production meeting, and she has just been able to pop in right now. Brenna, how are you, and how is art making in this era?
It's good. Apologies for my tardiness. Nothing like making art during the time of COVID. Always an exciting adventure. But no, it's going well. It's going well. I'm currently in Vancouver, Canada. We're working on a new production of Carmen that goes to film next week. So it's yeah, I'm very excited with orchestra and with obviously a slightly reduced cast, because it's very hard to keep. It would be very hard to keep a full complement of a Carmen production COVIDly safe. I think you'd need probably close to like 20 city blocks or something to do that. So it's a slightly smaller version, but yeah, so that's where I came from today.
Oh, that's very exciting. And how are the conditions in Canada these days for making live art?
I think like everywhere else, it's always sort of trying to bend to match wherever the sort of rules are, right? Because it is sort of, as we learn and as vaccines roll out or as testing gets better, the rules are sort of always kind of shifting, which is great in a way, right? So that it can allow us to do something. But it does also mean that you sort of live in a world of consistently wondering exactly which rule you're in this week. So that's good. But Vancouver Opera has been very good about it. You know, everyone is in the PPE, and nothing like, you know, Carmen and Don José trying to have an intimate love moment from 3 meters apart, but such is art in the time of COVID.
Yes, right. Reimagining romance and intimacy in the art of COVID. That's interesting. So we met each other for the first time again at the Dallas Opera on the production of La Bohème, which was a fantastic production. And then we met again this season in Kentucky. Well, not in Kentucky because we couldn't get there, of course, but it was at the Kentucky Opera, and they were totally reimagining with great courage and bravado the entire season. And we just basically had a series of brainstormings, didn't we? Where we just threw, and they had a lot of faith in us, because they basically said, just go to town and just brainstorm together and come up with fabulous ideas, and we'll see what sticks. And we don't really know how it's going to be, but we're excited to go on this adventure together. And some very interesting projects have come out of that. Can you talk to us about some of the projects that you've been working on with them in particular?
Sure. So one of the things that they were really wanting to focus on were there were sort of 3 themes that were going to relate to productions that they wanted to possibly do in the future. So one of them was about families, and how families in our modern world, how they maybe look differently than they did in the 1950s or something like that. So what I have actually done is created a series of, I guess, webisodes called Dear Mom. And they all, there's always a song that one of the performers sing within it, but it's a series of letters that people write to their mom about different things. One is about adoption. One is about having moved to San Francisco in the 80s and having, you know, a young man having found the man of his dreams. One is about what it's like to be an Asian American in the 50s going to Thanksgiving. And just like, so it's about just trying to let us think about the different ways that families can look, but also the ways that, you know, we all sort of want to talk to our mom, right? Even if mom's not there, or whoever mom is to us, whoever that person of generosity and hope, and that person who sort of is our sometimes our secret keeper. So they're all sort of about the different ways that looks, and the different, but the fact that it's all the same, basically.
Yeah, that's interesting. And what an interesting idea to take such a vivid image of the mother during this time where people need such hope and such comfort. Um, it's a very interesting, statement that you choose to make about what we need. What do you think that people need these days, 1 year later? What kind of messages do you want to create for the communities that you serve with your art?
I think for me, it so depends on the different communities. I mean, uh, it's always, it always feels like it wants to be unique for wherever you are. Like Vancouver is different than Kentucky, than is different than um, London or Tel Aviv. Like it's all, each place is different. And so I think that's one of one of my sort of greatest goals, is to always kind of create something for wherever we are. But I mean, I think in general, I think we've sort of come out of the pandemic, or are hopefully coming out of the pandemic. And so I think like the sense of hope is starting to kind of return, and spring is coming back, and I mean, I'm in Canada, at least it's not snowing. Like there's some hope on the horizon. So I think it's more about it, as opposed to it being things that inspire, which is what it felt like it needed to be more in sort of the last several months. Now it feels more about things that are action, that are doing, that are moving us forward, that are inspiring us to take what we have discovered over the past year and activate and take action.
Oh, good. Well, I like that message. I think we'll all, be very excited by that message. So let's hope that we're out of the winter period and into the spring of this COVID era going forward. That's great. I think we all have had a kind of a moment to understand more about what everybody is trying to accomplish with their love of the art form of opera. And I think the leitmotif that we've been hearing is listening, reaching out, and hearing what your communities need and trying to respond to that. And also taking things that we have perhaps already made, but using them in a new way, using them in an innovative way, shifting priorities sometimes. What might have seemed like a good idea or something that was very apropos may not be the case anymore, and not to be afraid to, shelve that or to discard that. I think someone was saying that you have to be a relentless idea killer when you are in the creative profession, because you have no end to wonderful ideas. That's not the problem. The problem is, which ones are you actually going to make viable? And so I think that's probably part and parcel of the creative process, especially as we're going into, this new era. It reminds me also of a book which I love. I don't know if anybody has read it, called Free Play. And Free Play talks about improvisation in acting, but it's basically, it can be applied to any of the creative arts. And it says that you need a set of parameters or restrictions for you to fully explore and to use your creativity to the utmost. And at one point, it even referred to, look at a newborn baby, for example. If you just let the newborn baby be without any kind of swaddling or anything, they freak out. They don't know what to do with it. And creatively, we're kind of like that. And sometimes we do our best work when we have these constraints. So I think you all are good examples of what happens when really creative minds get a new set of parameters and all the incredible and innovative solutions that can be found out of these new set of restrictions. So I think it's very inspiring. I would love now to kind of open up the virtual room, and we have a series of little questions, and they're kind of yay or nay questions. Very short responses, and hopefully we will not be on the same page, so we can have different perceptions and different opinions of this. So the first yay or nay: online will kill the performing arts. Yay or nay?
Nay.
Nay.
Nay. Oh, is everybody nay?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, good. All right.
We have to be. we have to be nay.
Okay, so if we're nay, some people say that there has to be this kind of bridge or communication between the stuff that happens online and our in-person activities. Other people say that it should not be that way, that you should not worry, you should do the digital stuff and you're going to have your digital audience, and that's going to be separate from your in-person events, and you should not try to look for a bridge between the two, because you should just let them be separate.
I'm gonna just go in and say,
Jump in here.
it's not the audience, it's the art form is not the same. Like, you know, you can't define opera as what, like a two-dimensional picture. You can't. I mean, we've been trying for the last 12 months to sort of fit a round on a square. The truth is that there are two different ways of creating, and they have their own values in and of itself. Doesn't mean that we have to eliminate one to give credit to the other one. Being in the same space of live music and live theater and live visual, there's nothing like compares to it. It's comparing like apples and oranges. They're just completely different things. It happens that we haven't tapped, as an opera industry, we haven't really tapped into the digital market. So now we are sort of experimenting with how to do that. But the people that are succeeding at it, they don't try to make it opera. They don't try to make it what it used to be. They just make it whatever is meant to be by itself and evolve by itself.
Okay, that's great. So we're hearing that it's the art form itself that is at the heart of that. Don't try to create a bridge because it's like apples and oranges. Does anybody have a different take on the question?
I don't know if it's a different take, Elizabeth, but I think that which is my ethos, as I'm sure you've understood by now, we have to move forward as quickly as the other sectors. If we're talking about two-dimensional technology, then of course it's boring, you know, but if we're talking about moving ahead with cutting edge technology, finding the best technological partners. So instead of having one camera or 3 cameras, why not have 100 cameras going around the stage as people are discussing now? They want to do it with sport, with basketball, they want to do it with football. And why, you know, and people are talking about doing this also for the performing arts. So having an absolute 360 spectator experience where it's not the same as if you were there. I think we all agree on this. This is obvious, but it's another experience. Opera has to be at the forefront with all the other sectors. We're no different to sport. We're no different to anybody else. We have to be ambitious for the sector.
Oh, ESPN, are you listening? This is fantastic. If we could get the same audiences as, you know, as some of the NBAs, that would be amazing.
We're very powerful. We're very powerful, and we shouldn't forget this. In terms of soft power and communication, as I said before, nobody does it like us. We have to be very confident in this.
Mm-hmm.
I would also just jump on what Julia's saying, if I could, that I think opera at its core is a story. It's just a story. And then we're just talking about the package that we wrap it in, you know, whether it's paper with a little twine and a little sprig of something, or whether it's all zhuzhed up with, you know, all 7,000 kind of bows. I mean, the core of it is still the same. So, I mean, the experience of maybe unwrapping it, or the experience of discovering it, is different. And that, I think, is the thing that we can tailor make and nuance for each different venue or way that we try to sort of create these different experiences of it. But in essence, it's the same. I mean, to me, that's the bridge. The bridge is that the actual thing, the core that we're doing, I mean, that's the same. Anyways, just throw that out there.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, if you start to talk to people about some of the libretti of the operas, you realize that you sound like Telemundo, that you sound like Dallas, the series, you know, and it's, as you say, it's storytelling. It's also fantastical storytelling. We also had a really interesting conversation with my father-in-law, who's Romanian, about folk tales. And these Romanian folk tales, and they're not the only one, but we were just focusing on them, are very violent. And we were talking about the violence. Is it first degree? Is it second degree? You know, is it important for children to hear these folk tales? How do you come to terms with this violence? Do you explain it? Do you say, no, I don't want my children to listen to this anymore? And I know that we're dealing with this in opera as well. There are some beautiful pieces of music that have disturbing libretti, and that are not, they're just not okay for the 21st century. And we have been understanding that. I would like to ask that question. What do we do with a beautiful work of music, and the libretto is just not acceptable for today's standards? What do we do with that?
I think it comes down to education.
Okay.
I think it comes down to preparing your community and preparing your offices for the fallout, if there is any fallout. I also think it needs to be understood that when you are staging narratives that are not of your own culture or something like that, then you should probably have somebody of that culture around and hire them and pay them to come and consult or take over the project so that it is done in the best way possible. I think that's one of the solutions. I also think you prepare your community, you prepare your, like I said, your inner offices, you prepare your artists, you prepare the layers if you're going to take that on. I've heard this question a lot, and I've heard a lot of people have like, we should just throw the whole thing away. I don't know that that's the solution, because to me, when we've thrown historical pieces away or forgotten what's happened in history, we wind up right back at the same place where we were again. And if you don't believe me, look at the shootings right now happening in the US. We don't learn our lessons. So the same way with where we are right now, I think it is very important that we understand that, yes, some of these works are problematic. They were never right to begin with, but they are part of the repertoire. So we have to, if we're going to do it, you need to find a way to present them in a way, knowing that you're in a 21st century society, and finding the best way possible to present them and make sure that your organization is ready to take on whatever happens in that presentation. And I'm talking about preparation and planning beforehand. I'm talking about preparing your community. I'm talking about preparing your staff, everything. And if that means bringing in a consultant who does this kind of work, then that's what you should do. Otherwise, maybe you should not present it.
So you're saying, as a very interesting and point of view, you're saying don't put them in the closet and just lock the door and never see them again, because we're doomed to repeat the same destructive cycles if we don't address it. But you're saying come and you prepare the terrain beforehand, during and after, so that you can accompany and contextualize the work. Yeah,
yes, I think that's one of the ways in which to approach it. Absolutely. I don't think it's the only way, but I do think you have to be prepared, because like I said, we are in the 21st century, and there are racist tropes, there are misogynistic tropes that are boiling up to the surface. And as Julie was saying, we have to be relevant. And in that relevance, you have to ask yourself, if I present this work, am I prepared for what is going to come afterwards? And can I get on a stage or in a newspaper article, whatever, and fully say that we prepared as best we could in every way possible, or what? And if you don't have the capacity to do that within your organization or with whoever you're working with, hire somebody in to help with that, okay? Because it's just necessary. All right, there are people who specialize in doing this, so the help is available and out there for when you want to take on these kinds of works.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Does anybody have a different take on this very important question?
I just want to supplement what Kristian is saying. I mean, I think it's the way we do them more than doing them. Again, it's the how we're doing, how we're speaking. And if you have a producing company that wants to really bring those works up, and I think they should, honestly, because I think our second, third generations down, we cannot erase history and basically telling them that those things didn't happen and world wasn't that way. That's just lying to them. So why don't show it, give them a window into that and say, this is why, and this is how. The other thing is you need to balance the season. So if you are going to put a work like that, it's a work that is going to trigger people, then bring subjects that matter right now. Do as one. Do a work that is going to bring diversity into your state. Balance it. That way people know that you are doing both works. You're educating in every angle possible. The truth is that relevance comes from the community, and old power that we've built in this industry is all about how people on the top and board of directors are telling everybody else what they should listen to and what they should like. We're not going out there and saying, what are the stories that this community wants to hear about? Like, just go down there and look how bottom heavy we are. Just a few five that have a lot of money are making the decisions for the entire industry. And that's wrong. And I think companies are starting to listen to what the communities want.
This is interesting. So are you saying that this moment, which has shaken us up so much, is also potentially the moment for change that will be structural and systemic?
Yeah, power is going to go sideways. It's not going to go up and down anymore. It's going to come from community. It's going to come from movements. And it's only a movement if it moves things in a certain direction. And there is a movement that has happened while we were all sitting around. Our artists have been gathering and talking and communicating with each other. They now want to be part of a bigger impact of this industry. They do not want to be shut down and just wait for the contract to come in the door and just open their mouth to sing. They want to be part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And what a great and rich series of conversations we're having these days in this very turbulent, but also ripe for change. And it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to be better, do better, do differently. It's an exciting time, I suppose, in that way, even though it can be also scary. During these last couple of minutes, I wonder if I could ask all of you briefly to imagine you 20 years ago, but you're now living in this era. So a young you who's just entering your profession right now, what words of wisdom or courage would you say to your young self entering right now the profession?
I'll go first.
Go for it. Go for it.
I will tell myself, don't single-minded focus on one thing. I think open your eyes, get eyes in the back of your head, listen and watch what the communities are telling you. Not only learn your craft and be hyper-focused on learning how to sing up and down, learn how community education works, how development works. Be part of the system. Integrate yourself in the system of art and performing arts, not just live in your little bubble. That's what I would call it.
Range. Okay, thank you, Anna. Julia, I see that you.
Yeah, no, I think Anna's right. Not to live in one's bubble. I think, honestly, talking from the heart here, I think I would say to myself, don't be scared. You know, I was so scared, and we're all scared. But you know, I've 42 years old now. I feel like I've finally got the courage to say what I think. The amount of times, and I'm so ashamed to say, that I saw things were wrong. You know, I was sitting on panels and someone made a racist comment, or I was sitting in an office and somebody tore up a contract because they didn't like what the artist had done. And, you know, the amount of times I was there and I didn't do anything because I was scared. And I thought I had absolutely no support from anyone. And we're talking about a lot about male-dominated management as well. I didn't have a female role model. I was scared. I didn't know how to do it. Today is not the case, and I'm glad that we are having these conversations so we can all support each other when we see something's wrong, when we see that once again in a singing competition there are only white faces, there is no representation. This is still happening today. You know, don't be scared. Don't be scared to speak out, because today I hope we have the support that we didn't have before. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but that's what I would say.
That's great. Okay, don't be afraid and speak out. Thank you, Julia.
I would kind of back what both Anna and Julia said. There's a lot at play, and so for myself right now, I would tell them what I tell the artists who work for me in education, who work with me right now. There are people that are out on the lines fighting, and within organizations, outside of organizations, in the community, to make a better place for you than it was 20 years before. So, you know, be encouraged, stand up for yourself, talk about your needs. And if you don't have a role model or a mentor, seek out those places and those people. Be bold. Email opera companies and ask for a mentor. Email symphonies and ask for a mentor, or have them point you in the direction of one. Take care of yourselves. Take a nap. I say that too. Like, take time to rest. Be radical in resting. I would also say to them that know the shoulders on which you stand, particularly if you are an artist of color. Know the shoulders on which you stand. There are a lot of people who paved the way to get you to where you are right now, get us to where we are right now, and you stand on those shoulders. But you also have many people who want to fight for you and want to be in your corner right here around you right now. COVID has brought us together in ways that I have never imagined. And the fact that I'm on this call with you right now, and we're all sitting in different places across the world, quite literally, you can expand your network even in times like this. Talk to your fellow artists, talk to arts administrators, talk to people and have real conversations with people. And number one thing is to seek truth and true human connection. And you cannot do that unless you're willing to accept the whole of a person and their narrative and believe their lived experiences, and understand that your lived experiences are valid and nobody can take that away from you. So that's what I would say. Not only have an extra set of skills like Anna was talking about, make sure you're learning extra skills along the way. I make sure all of my artists get extra skills while we're working, but I also very much with Julia in saying that stand up and say something. If you see a wrongdoing, say something. It is wrong. If you call yourself an ally, white people, I'm talking to you, stand up and say something when you see something wrong. Men, when you're in a room and you see a woman being wrong, stand up and say something. At times that your voice is going to be more powerful. And then once you said something, make room and get out of the way so they can speak for themselves, because we're very well equipped to do so. And I say that as a woman and as a Black woman and a woman of color. That's what I would say to young people.
Well, I can't even sum that up because there was so much wisdom right there. It was like a haiku of wisdom right there. So think everything from be bold to be radical in resting and seek truth and know on whose shoulders you're standing. Thank you so much, Kristian. Brenna, can you take us to the last words of wisdom?
Oh, I feel like, yeah, again, knowing the shoulders of the women you stand upon, God, everything that these women have said before me is 100% right. I'm not sure I could say anything better. I guess the one thing I would tell myself, just based off my experience, would be listening is the best way to learn, and it's way more active than I understood when I was younger. You don't just listen to respond, you actually need to listen to understand people's, just like we were just talking about, understand their points of view, their experiences, but also understand their needs. I mean, I think, we all want to sort of have that sort of communication. I mean, I don't do it well yet, but it's a, life goal, that one day listening can be a thing that is not passive, but truly active. And that's the thing I wish I had done sooner. And I wish anytime I work with a young artist or a young director, or it's like the one thing I wish I could tell you how much this will help you, and I know that you have to discover it on your own.
One of the toughest things. It's so true, so true. Thank you, Brenna. We've had active listening, speaking out, storytelling, and asking your community, what do you need? And this is all beautiful metaphors for the art form that we all love and we're dedicated to, which is opera. So thank you so very much, Kristian Roberts, Anna de Archuleta, Brenna Corner, and Julia Lagahuzère, for your time, for your wisdom, and for your leadership that you bring to opera each and every day and to the communities that we all serve. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us today on Polyphonies.